Performances like tonight is why coaches get fired. DJU, you have to play better. I'm not sure if he's the best fit. I'm not sure if he's the best option. But if Florida State wants to compete, they're going to have to make a decision at the quarterback position.
We are officially witnessing one of the craziest fall-offs in college football history. DJU Youngale was one of the most hyped five-star recruits we've seen in a very long time. And now he's on the hot seat at his third school in 5 years. Going from the man who was supposed to replace Trevor Lawrence, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, to a guy who's been booed off the field by multiple fan bases, and this isn't a trajectory you see quite often. But so far in 2024, this trajectory from DJU has been the talk of the century. So before we get to the content, if you want to support us creating college football content on this channel, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, work! Today's video is sponsored by SeatGeek. NFL season's officially here, and as a Dallas Cowboy fan, I could say unequivocally that this year's our year. Which is why I need to tell you about my special hookup from SeatGeek. Everyone can use my promo code Mikerophone10 and get 10% off of any tickets on SeatGeek, whether you're a new customer or not. Sports, concerts, festivals, you name it. I love SeatGeek because they rate on a scale of 1 to 10 in regards to the best deal that you're getting. Green dots mean good, red dots mean bad, and no matter how many times you bought tickets using SeatGeek before, if you use my promo code Mikerophone10, you'll get 10% off of your next order. So take out your phone, open the SeatGeek app, and add code Mikerophone10 to your account. What are you waiting for? Do it now because this offer is only available for a limited time. And thank you, SeatGeek, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? DJU really was supposed to be the hero Tallahassee needed, but instead, all of Florida feels like this.
Are we trash?
Kinda.
Oh.
Now, the 2023 season was a big season for Florida State. They'd go 13-0 in the regular season, but the season would conclude in controversy, as Florida State would get snubbed for the college football playoff, mostly because their star quarterback, Jordan Travis, tore his ACL. This happened a month before the committee had to make their decision. FSU fans were angry, and rightfully so, but even though star players like Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, and Jared Verse were heading to the NFL, fans and reporters still had huge expectations for the Noles in 2024. This is despite losing all of their talent. FSU was still ranked number 10 in the preseason AP poll. The reason? DJU, a former top recruit, decided to transfer from Oregon State to Florida State in hopes of replacing Jordan Travis and leading FSU to a national championship. Revenge was on his mind. This was going to be the ultimate comeback story. A quarterback that was supposed to live up to his potential, taking a program that was supposed to at least make it to the college football playoff last year. The script writers couldn't write a better script for this season, but alas, that's not what the script would be. There was a ton of hype for Florida State coming into the season, considering how big of a prospect DJU was. Coming out of high school, DJU had offers from schools like USC and Oregon, but ultimately decided to commit to Clemson to be the rightful heir to Trevor Lawrence's throne. And I mean, let's be real, he could have gone to any school that he wanted to. To give you an idea of how good of a recruit he was, 24/7 Sports gave him a prospect rating of a 101, naming him the 14th best quarterback prospect of all time, and considered him the second best overall prospect in his recruiting class, ahead of CJ Stroud. For context, 24/7 Sports considers Trevor Lawrence to be the best quarterback prospect of all time, which is completely fair, but that just goes to show you who Clemson was trusting DJU to replace. And back then, I could see why. This guy was literally born to play football. He got his first football scholarship offer in the 6th grade. Are you kidding me?
3rd grade year, I was playing up 6th, 7th, 8th graders. I mean, I just remember playing quarterback. I remember before the pads came on. Oh yeah, I like this.
Since DJU was a kid, he knew he was going to be a star quarterback. And this is the type of story that a NFL MVP would have, not a guy who can't complete a pass more than 5 yards down the field against ACC competition. This story makes absolutely no sense because when we got our first glimpse of DJU in the COVID year, he was absolutely tearing up the ACC. In his first ever collegiate start, due to Trevor Lawrence testing positive for COVID, he'd find himself facing, ironically enough, Boston College. college, and he immediately gave everybody that had eyes on him a show. He and the Tigers would end up being down by 18 points, and after throwing for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns on an absurd 78% completion percentage, DJU would lead Clemson to a huge comeback. Clemson fans were ecstatic because the future for Clemson looked so bright, even as they were going to lose Trevor Lawrence to the NFL. So how did DJU become so bad? Well, after an exciting freshman season, DJU was named the starter once Trevor Lawrence got drafted number 1 overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the hype was real. Clemson was ranked number 3 in the preseason AP poll, but you guys know the trend now. DJU let everybody down. Clemson would end up 10-3, but DJU would finish the season with only 2,246 yards and a terrible 9-10 touchdown to interception ratio. Clemson fans absolutely hated this guy, and honestly, they still do. The DJU era at Clemson was so bad that he literally led the Tigers to the ACC championship game in 2022, and Dabo Swinney benched him. Of course, after this, the hype had completely died down for DJU, and he would enter the transfer portal, ultimately transferring to Oregon State for his junior season. Fortunately for DJU, he ended up being good enough at Oregon State to bring back some of that hype he had fully thrown away at Clemson, so he decided that he was going to transfer to a bigger name school for his final year of eligibility to try and boost his draft stock one last time. And obviously, that school ended up being Florida State. And with the way things have gone so far, he would have been much better off just staying at Oregon State. With all the hype that DJU brought Florida State, there was so much disappointment, and we're only 3 games into the season. FSU had dreams of making the college football playoff after last year, but 3 games in, and the dream is completely dead. I hate to put it bluntly because it's only September, and Florida State fans are already beyond disappointed. FSU played Georgia Tech in literally the first game of the 2024 season, and that's all some fans needed to see before they officially gave up on their new QB. If we're being truly honest, it only took the first half for people to realize that DJU wasn't the answer for the Noles. Sure, he might have been 12-14 with 96 yards at the half, but these numbers are completely skewed. This guy was averaging negative 0.1 air yards per attempt in 14 pass attempts. He was literally averaging a backward pass every time he dropped back. And sure, some of it was schemed, but DJ almost seemed like he was panicking at some points because he was simply being outplayed.
DJ is not the most accurate quarterback. We've seen that, over time. He looked like a tepid runner. So they did what good defensive coaches do. They put him in positions where he didn't appear comfortable.
Now, he'd end up having a decent enough second half to almost lead FSU to a win, but Georgia Tech would ultimately come away with the upset. The fact that he didn't get blown out, though, is what led fans to believe that he might have just had a bad game, and they'd finally see the quarterback that they were hoping for when he would face off against Boston College. Plus, Georgia Tech is actually pretty good, so maybe facing some lesser competition could wake DJU up, right? Well, that should have been the case, but instead he was making throws like these for 60 minutes. I mean, he wasn't just making bad throws just because of his arm either. He was making mental mistake after mental mistake. I mean, just look at this throw for an example. Instead of hitting his ex-receiver on a wide open dig, he completely misses the wide open guy and tries to hit a deep out route that's not even close to open, sailing the ball out of bounds. This game was rough for DJU. He had 272 yards and a touchdown, but those 272 yards came on 42 pass attempts and a 50% completion percentage. And the touchdown was 100% because of the receiver. I mean, I've honestly never seen a hitch be thrown with less zip than this. He's lucky that his receivers juked out 3 guys on his way to the end zone. It was bad. And it even got to a point where he was getting booed off the field by the third quarter. And Florida State fans were literally chanting that they wanted DJU to be benched.
Again, the play calling. Running back out here in the flat.
Imagine hearing fans chanting that they want to see your backup just 6 quarters into your career at that school. It legit could not get worse for DJU after the Boston College game, except somehow it did. Yeah, it's really bad in Tallahassee. I mean, Florida State literally paid Memphis to face off against them, and Memphis may have came into this game undefeated, but it's not like they're ranked. They're not even a great football team, but DJU made them look like the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. In the first quarter of this game, DJU did complete 5 out of his 6 pass attempts, but it was for a whopping 7 yards. And he threw that absolutely horrendous pick that you just saw. It's just so on brand for DJ at this point. The rest of the game wasn't much better either. Florida State would of course lose this game by 8 after DJU could only lead his offense to 12 points. And FSU season's officially over. Fans, you can stop watching until next August because this offense isn't going to get better anytime soon. That is unless Mike Norvell decides to sit DJ and start Brock Glenn against Cal. The Noles desperately need somebody who can actually drive the ball down the field and create plays instead of missing open receivers left and right. And Brock Glenn can do just that. He also brings some mobility to the table, which Florida State's offense arguably needs more than anything. Because right now it just seems like as soon as DJU sees pressure, the play is over, and that's not going to win you football games. If Norvell does make this change, which it very much looks like he will at some point, this would be the end of DJU's football career as we know it. The last time we saw something like this was when Spencer Rattler lost his job to Caleb Williams. Rattler was the #1 QB in his recruiting class and the only 5-star quarterback. He had a promising freshman season at Oklahoma, and he had Heisman hopes heading into his sophomore year. But as a result of his performance during the Red River rivalry game, some fans were chanting for him to be benched. But the difference was, this happened in Rattler's sophomore season, but he would transfer to South Carolina and was decent enough to get selected by the New Orleans Saints in this past year's NFL draft. And he also got benched for Caleb Williams, who ended up being a Heisman Trophy winner and a future #1 overall pick. This DJU situation is happening in his super senior year, and he's probably going to get benched for a guy who wasn't even a top 20 QB in his recruiting class. This guy was a shoo-in to be a pro at the next level, but he hasn't given anybody a single reason to believe that he'll ever play a snap in the NFL. And I mean, even if he does turn it around and miraculously find himself in draft talks again, who would even draft this guy? He's done nothing but let people down and show that his decision-making and arm talent are not NFL worthy, let alone the fact that he'd be 24 years old by the time the 2025 season started. Like I said, even if he miraculously turns around his super senior season around, there's just no chance that this guy sees an NFL field. No one could ever take away the fact that he's one of the greatest college football prospects of all time, but at the same time, he is still one of the most disappointing players in college football history, regardless of how the rest of his tenure at Florida State turns out. Even though it really looks bad, we genuinely might never see DJU play a football snap again. And if you had told me that 4 years ago, I would have called you crazy. Wow, what a fall off. If you think this is crazy, what about the player that is literally copying Patrick Mahomes? Every single movement to his jersey number and his equipment. We have a full video on Dylan Raiola. I'll leave it in the end screen. And aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.